Welcome to more Examiner Insights. An instructor asked me the other day to do a multi-engine flight test for one of his students. Let's call him Andy. I met with Andy, and one of my first questions typically is if he understood the flight test guide. It turned out he hadn't even read it. He had a very cursory knowledge of what's in there. Now, his flight instructor taught him the aim of all these exercises, so he was able to do the exercises both on the ground and in the air. But there's a lot of performance criteria that the flight test guide mentions that Andy wouldn't know about. And I believe we have to talk about that, because the flight test guide is not just another government document, it's your roadmap through the flight test. As I mentioned, it explains in much detail all the exercises that you will be doing, and you cannot possibly ace your flight test if you don't know about that. But there's a lot more to the flight test guide. It starts with reminding you what is expected of you, what you have to bring to the flight test, all the prerequisites. It talks about the 4-point marking scale, the system that's being used to evaluate your flight test, ultimately to decide if you pass or fail your flight test. The 4-point marking scale is a topic for another day. There's a lot more in it, but for today, let's talk about the flight test guide. Flight test guide also gives you hints how to pass your flight test. It reminds you, for example, that the flight test is not a race. Don't be rushed. Take your time. Ask questions. So a lot of good stuff is in that flight test guide, and you need to know that. Now, to be clear, if you don't know the flight test guide, it will probably influence the outcome of your flight test, but it's not in itself a pass or fail item. You don't fail because you haven't read the flight test guide. Chances are the flight test just doesn't go ahead. In this case, we canceled our flight test for the day and rescheduled. And I'm sure when Andy comes back and he knows the flight test guide, he then knows what is expected of him and what to expect from the flight test. And that way, Andy will have a good chance to ace his flight test.